They're dead, Dave.
What, Captain Hollister?
Everybody's dead, Dave.
What, Todd Hunter? What, Selby? Not Jen.
He's dead, Dave. Everybody is dead. Everybody is dead, Dave.
Hello, welcome back to Everybody is Dead, Dave, the Red Dwarf review podcast. We are at the end of series 2 already.
Crazy.
That is
I know.
crazy. This is the podcast where myself, someone who has been watching for many years, and Adam here.
Someone who is going through the show for the very first time. Amazing. Now that I'm watching it and enjoying it, I'm kicking myself even more. I'm like, why have I not watched this show before? And every time I tell people, oh, I'm doing a Red Dwarf podcast, I've never seen it, they go, why have you never seen Red Dwarf? So, yes, all right, I'm late to the party, okay, but now for the first 2 seasons at least, I can hop on the bandwagon with you all.
You are quickly catching up, and for anybody else who's watching it for the first time, do let us know in the comments if you are, because we would love to know who else is watching this for the very first time. Because when we announced it, I did have a few comments from people going, oh, I've been meaning to watch that, maybe I'll watch it along with the podcast. So if you have done that, let us know in the comments below.
Please do.
Because we are here on YouTube, but we're also where you can comment. I don't think you can comment on places like... you can leave reviews, can't you? So you can leave reviews on Apple Podcasts and stuff like that. So please do that as well.
Yeah,
we are on
do.
everywhere you can get your podcasts. We are up
you can't
to...
escape. So.
Yeah, exactly. You can't escape us. We're up to, like I said, the season finale, the series finale of Series 2 of Red Dwarf, Parallel Universe. And I think there's going to be a lot to talk about in this episode. But first of all, let's find a little synopsis to read out so give you an idea of what happens. So Holly in this creates a new star drive, which geniusly named the Hollyhop Drive, which will theoretically warp Red Dwarf from one part of space to another within a matter of seconds. They're all going to get home. But it all goes horribly wrong when Red Dwarf enters a parallel universe where a lot of things are the opposite. Where do we start with it? Well, let's start at the very start of this episode, because we don't start with parallel universes. We start with a show tune.
Yes. This was such a big shock, because obviously watching this now, I'm used to the iconic theme and Lister scrubbing Red Dwarf and the lovely panning shot of the ship, and it doesn't happen this time. So I think at first I was like, whoa, like what are we doing? And then literally out of nowhere we cut to the 3 lads all in what am I saying, like the same outfit, red outfits, doing, as you say, a show tune, a very 80s doo-wop show tune called Tongue Tied, and it's brilliant, Phil. I loved it. I didn't care that I didn't know where this had come from. Like, I didn't care there was no setup. I love the fact they just decided, they were like, sod it, we're going to kick off with this show tune with no context. And the 3 lads, I've got to give it to them, voices and choreography, pretty good, especially Danny John Jules. Some of those moves, I don't know if he had any, sort of dance training prior, but if he did, it definitely shows that it was, just wonderful. And I want to buy it as a 7-inch single if they ever did that.
If you had been around in 1990, this episode came out in 1989, but if you'd been around a few years later in 1993, they did release it as a into the UK singles. It reached number 17 in the UK singles chart. And it was billed as being performed by The Cat. It was, of course, sung by Danny John Jules, but on the CD and everything, or it was credited to The Cat. So I love that. I love the fact that it got to number 17 in the UK singles chart. It's brilliant.
That's the British public all over. But interesting you say as well, it wasn't like at the time. It took a few years before it, which shows how people clearly love the song and how it held. I mean, it is, again, like I've said so many times about this show, the song is the most 80s thing ever, but I love it. Like, it's so, right down from the set and the... It's so catchy.
Because
And
we've actually had a song before. We've had a much smaller musical number in the show before. I think it was when they were looking at... Was it when they were looking at Rimmer's Dreams? And there was something about him singing.
Yes, yeah.
Am I remembering that right? See,
I think it was around then. Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
as you say, very short. It wasn't.
it was
long
very
at all.
short, and it was Rimmer singing, I think, and it wasn't very good. Like,
Yeah,
this
it
is
was-
so much better than that.
And I love as well on the set, they clearly just, Top of the Pops wasn't filming that day, clearly, and they were like, hey, can we just borrow the set, borrow some dancers? And they were like, yeah, sure. I don't know that as fact, but it just, having seen a lot of 80s Top of the Pops clips over the years, do you know what I mean? It just reeks of that BBC studio platform stage sort of thing, and it's very of its time, but that's what makes it brilliant, I think. It's not ashamed to be like that, and I mean, even when it ends, I love how, we don't even have the regular opener or a message from Holly. It's just straight into the action, Oh, it's a dream recorder. And I'm like, oh, of course it is. But I wrote in my notes, I was like, a dream recorder. Best opening ever. Because I think I will say that is my favourite opening so far. I'm a sucker, for anyone who knows me well, for 80s cheese, particularly in pop music. And this hit a sweet spot. Let's say that. This hit a real sweet spot. So,
I don't know about you, but I'm a massive musicals fan anyway. So, anytime, like, this is more of a pop tune, sure, but still, just the fact that I would love a whole musical episode of Red Dwarf.
Oh, me too, yeah.
With the characters bursting into song and everything. I would love that. In fact, I think every show should have a musical episode somewhere in its run.
Yeah, just for the sake of it, get the musical episode in there. I mean, I'm surprised there's not been a Red Dwarf musical, like full stop, because it seems like I thought that'd be a producer's dream. Small cast, you can do a cheap, fairly cheap, sci-fi ship set. It's a cost-saving producer's dream. So I'm surprised they haven't done it yet.
Yeah, I see. How would you... See, I don't know if you'd be able to get this cast to do that on stage.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I don't know
I'd
how
be
I'd
down for
feel
seeing
about
other
a
people.
recast. I don't know how a
See,
lot of
that's
people
interesting,
would feel
isn't
about a
it?
recast.
Yeah. Because maybe yourself and other fans who've watched for ages, obviously, and throughout Red Dwarf's 30 plus years, it's always been those same actors playing those three parts. Whereas maybe for someone like me at the minute, I feel less affiliated with they're brilliant, do you know what I mean? But at the minute, if you said to me, here's a Red Dwarf musical, and it's three different actors who are playing, I think I'd be like, yeah, okay, I'll give them a chance. Do you know, I wouldn't have that sort of knee-jerk reaction, I don't think, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I might be willing to do it. I mean, we do have coming to the London stage very soon, Back to the Future, the musical, which I've got tickets for, which, again, recasts, quite iconic characters, quite iconic actors that are, when you think of those characters, you think of the actors that play them. You think of Michael J. Fox, but they're managing to do it. But there's been a big, even though this was the 80s, they're still making Red Dwarf up to last year.
Amazingly,
so,
yeah.
There hasn't been that distance yet, perhaps.
Yeah. No, maybe there isn't. But yeah, for anyone who's curious, my girlfriend got to see that musical, Back to the Future, before the pandemic, and she said it was brilliant. And I'm hopefully going to see it once life returns to normal. But yeah,
well, hopefully I'll get to see it when they stop postponing my tickets.
Lucky. But yeah, on the whole, I mean, we've just said it, but yeah, brilliant opener, my favourite so far. And yeah, I just like it how we go straight into, no messing around, right? We're not having the title sequence. We're not having a title full stop. We're just going straight into it, straight with the boys from the Dwarf. And we get a fun... Go on.
I was going to say, it turns out, because we haven't mentioned this, that it was another dream recorder sequence.
Yes.
And which is a nice callback to something we've had before, and a nice explanation of... Because you do start this going, what is going on? I love it, but what's going on? Why are they dancing?
Absolutely.
And we do get a logical in-universe reason for it, which I quite like.
Yeah, absolutely. And then once we're back in, I say reality, but this is Red Dwarf. Once we're back in some sort of familiarity, we have a conversation about Rimmer hypnotizing girls or trying to hypnotize girls.
Yeah, Rimmer never fails to disappoint in how low he can go, does he?
Yeah, and I must admit, and this could be just of the era I've grown up in, and I'm, if you want to call me a well, you can call me a snowflake if you want. I don't believe I am, but it's just that whole conversation. It's not that it didn't sit right with me. I felt ever so slightly unnerved, and I think that's just because that concept, I know they're playing it for laughs, hypnotize a girl, ask her to go out on a date with me. It's relatively harmless. I think it's because I've recently come off binge watching Torchwood for the very first time, and in that show, in the first episode, very different, it's meant for adults, I get that. But in that episode, there's a similar thing that's put into practice. I don't know if you remember, but the character Owen uses basically an alien aftershave, which makes any woman around, or any being around him, I should say, how do I use my words, incredibly attracted to him in a certain way. And when I watched that didn't sit right with me because it just seemed very wrong. Like that concept that, a girl initially says no to you, so I'm going to use something to manipulate them in some way to get what I want. That felt wrong to me. And I'm not saying this was the same thing, but just for a moment when they started getting on it, and I know it's played for comedy, and I know it's fairly harmless in this sense, but do you know what I mean? It just sort of made my head twinge a bit and thought...
Yeah, and I share the uncomfortable feeling. However, I do think that it is played for laughs, but also, and I think through Lister, we're shown that this is not something that is accepted.
Yes,
Lister calls him a sad weasel of a man in reference to
exactly,
these actions. I mean, I don't think Lister maybe is as harsh on him as we might be now, but he's definitely painted as this is not an acceptable way to go about trying to court women. This is not.
He's not colluding with it. He's not being like,
no. And in fact, Lister
ways
directly challenges it. And he challenges it in a kind of like, this makes you very sad and pathetic, rather than a kind of like, as we might do now, this makes you effectively a rapist. But there is that quite clear framing of it as a negative. This is not something that we're meant to laugh at in terms of we're laughing with Rimmer. We're definitely laughing at him, and we're laughing to we're judging him as well.
Yes,
not just from our modern perspective. I think that was that was definitely, if you look at this whole episode, that's definitely the aim.
That is the
time
whole
as
thing
well.
going on.
It sets up the themes quite nicely for the rest of the episode as well. And I quite like the fact that even though Lister is challenging him here, so Lister is kind of like the good guy here, there are things that come out a bit later that also show that Lister isn't, perfect himself, and the themes that are brought up apply to him as well in this. I share your feeling of slight uncomfortableness while he was saying it, but I think it works for the themes, and just generally it's good that it's portrayed as something that is negative.
Yes, absolutely. I think, to refine what I said, I think that uncomfortableness, I think it was when the concept was first introduced before Lister shut him down. I think it was initially hearing it where my mind was like, whoa, okay. But then as you say, Lister does sort of shut him down about it. And it's good that they have that, and it does set up the themes, which we'll get into later. But they're very prevalent in this story. One thing I wanted to ask you is, that following instantly that bit, the whole pickup line gag about, let's practice. Did you think that was a bit overdrawn? Because I did.
Yeah, it was another one of those ones like we had, was it last week? Where they just had the cheesy,
what was it?
Punchline that
it was
took too long to get
soles
to.
in your shoes or something. Or
That's it. And
it just felt a bit strung out. Yeah,
it did. Yeah, and I guess that was the point, that it's cringy, and you're like, what? I did quite like the fact that Rimmer was very adamant that he should say the correct response back, not being realistic at all. Like, oh no, you say this back to me.
You need to say this.
You need to say this. Like, that's not how conversations go.
Well, you can't say no. It doesn't work if you say no. You've got to say yes. Oh, right. Okay. Go on.
So, would you like a worm do?
What's that then?
What's what?
A worm do?
What about it?
Is this still the opening line? Look, you're not giving me the right reply. What is the right reply?
But, I think we've all been in that situation, not that situation, but a situation where we're in conversation with somebody and we've got a plan in our head of how the conversation's going to go. And it's not going that way. And they're saying things you didn't expect them to say. So that ruins your response. And so, there's that, which I can identify with, but not necessarily in the exact situation that Rimmer puts it in.
Yeah, precisely. And after we after we have that joke, we're alerted by Holly, as you said at the start. He has invented the Hollyhop Drive.
Holly comes on the screen. He's very pleased with himself. He's invented the Hollyhop
and
Drive.
You know it, and he's going to make you know it.
Yeah. And we get another great performance by Norman Lovett. He's just great in every episode. And then they go to the drive room where he introduces what this box is, and it's, as they say, it's just a box with a stop and a start button on it.
Yeah, I love how I think I wrote how adorably pathetic it is. Like, you can tell it's just been literally cobbled together, but I guess that's the point, and that I love how self-aware they are of that. They didn't think, we have to design this really efficient, complex thing. Just slap a bit of tinfoil on it.
I mean, it literally looks like a cardboard box with
because it probably is a cardboard box
on it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they didn't go to any other with the rest of the set. The stuff made of fairly flimsy material. They paint to look like it's metal or whatever. They didn't even go to that, but deliberately, because that's the point. It's meant to look really rubbish.
And I feel it fits in with Holly's character as well. We know he's sort of a bit of a bumbler and a bit of, this and that. So I feel if Holly was to physically make this, this is probably what it had come out as. So yeah, I didn't mind it. As I said, pathetically adorable. I loved it.
And then they hit the button and they hope to go back to Earth, but they don't go back to Earth. I did like the bit about with the bit where he goes,
It's gone.
"What is?"
The Earth. It's missing. It's not there. Wait a minute. Sorry, I was looking out the wrong window. No, it has gone. The entire solar system is missing.
And Rimmer's just like,
The thought occurs that we haven't actually reached Earth. The further thought occurs that we haven't actually budged a smegging inch.
It's a good setup joke, that, where Holly's looking out both windows, and once they've established they're in that parallel universe, I kind of like how, for a sci-fi comedy show, they give quite a quick, easy, succinct breakdown on what a parallel universe is, if that makes sense. Because obviously every sci-fi show that deals with parallel universes has different quote-unquote rules about, what they are and how they work and stuff. And even though it is just exposition, I don't know, I just felt I've tried to put myself in that mindset of I've never been to a parallel universe in TV before, and I just think they put it across in a pretty quick and easy way. I don't know, what did you think?
Yeah, fairly simple, really. And they do it while injecting comedy into it as well, like the line about,
Well, for instance, in this universe could be that Hitler won the Second World War. Could be something even more incredible, like perhaps Ringo was a really good drummer.
That made me cackle, because having lived in Liverpool for many years and hearing that, be the very obvious joke, Ringo, he's a crap drummer and all that, so that made me chuckle.
Because there's that famous interview with, was it with, I can't remember if it was with John Lennon or something, but the interview, I can't remember which other Beatle was asked, but one of the other Beatles was asked, is Ringo the best drummer in the world? And the reply from the other Beatle was, he's not even the best drummer in the Beatles.
That's it, yeah. Cheeky reference to Pete Best for any Beatles fans there, the quote-unquote fifth Beatle, as everyone likes to say. But yeah, no, I just find it funny how the joke started or was around even back in 1988, because to my knowledge anyway, it felt like a recent-ish thing, but I think, again, that's just from being in the heart of where the Beatles came from. So I love the fact that this... Poor Ringo, but this joke has been going on for so long that he's not the best drummer. But it's all subjective. I'm sure he's a nice human.
I've never really thought to assess his drumming, to be honest.
I mean, it's fine. It's there. It's serviceable. But yeah, I've heard better. But yeah.
So instead of going to Earth, they've actually find out they're in a parallel dimension. There's another red dwarf there, and the first, and we teased it earlier. Everything is opposite.
Yes.
Particularly the people. The people are the opposite of you, and in this case, we get the first hint of it when Hilly comes on the screen when the computers connect. Holly connects to Hilly. Hilly is a female version of Holly, and that's the fact. The most of the opposites on this ship are female versions of them, which then plays into the themes. Let's talk about the themes now, because I think this episode is probably one of the most certainly the strongest I think so far that we've got for theming, and sort of having a sort of core message running through it, and it's all cool kind of about sort of how people treat the opposite sex. Yes. I mean, as you say, essentially we meet another Lister and Rimmer who are both women, who have their similarities. Female Lister, I'll call her Ms. Lister, still likes to drink and is a bit of a slob, and Miss Rimmer's still very efficient. But they essentially have, the show portrays them as having very quote unquote male tendencies about them in their approach to regular Lister and Rimmer. And as you say, this episode's not shy about making its themes and intentions very known, right down to the dialogue. For example, like when Rimmer's looking through that magazine and he's talking about half-naked men, like, bending over cars.
But it just looks ridiculous. I mean, these models are deformed, hugely deformed. Makes one feel quite inadequate.
And there's a lot of talk, obviously, in the model industry as a whole that, there's debates, are people starving themselves too much just to get these jobs? Are they hurting their bodies more to appear glamorous? Is it body shaming? There's all those questions, and that quote from Rimmer basically sums that up. He further to that later on in the episode, but we'll discuss it as we're on themes. It's in the whole disco scene where particularly Ms. Rimmer is trying to come on to Mr. Rimmer, and she displays a lot of tendencies that are associated with men, in how men come on to women in that kind of scenario, sort of saying, I'm trying to think, gives a kiss and I promise I won't, go down your underwear, and all that creepy stuff that men do. I'm not denying it. Men, sadly, a lot of men do this, and it is still a problem. But that's what I sort of admired about this episode, because, it's not, Red Dwarf is still a comedy, and it does sort of play it for laughs, but the dialogue, I think, is written in such a way where it's you can have a laugh, but, we're trying to, do you know what I mean? This is what we're trying to get across still, that this is how, for the men watching, this is how a lot of you are. Yeah,
and it also holds up that mirror to sort of sexism and what women in these situations might feel as well, because the men, both Rimmer predominantly, but also Lister a bit later on, get a taste of what these are all the actions that they would do to women, and they're being done to them. Things like the male models and being called totty, and being told, you're asking for it because your trousers are tight, and things like that. All of those things are things that women go through, and often men. Sometimes some men would just laugh it off if they were challenged on it and go, "Oh, it's just a bit of fun, just a laugh." And here it's reversed, and you get to see Rimmer feeling very uncomfortable with all this stuff being, I don't want to be called Totty, and he, asking Rimmer to help him get away from his to the female equivalent of Rimmer and stuff.
As you say, I think they balance it very well. As I said, in the sense that a lot of it, there are moments, it's still played for laughs in a way, because it is a comedy, and you can't, I guess they couldn't just dedicate the whole episode to suddenly becoming this very serious drama. But they bridge it in such a way, like we say, where they get across the messages via the dialogue, but the physicality is still presented comedically. I don't know, it's a very fine balance. Yeah. I think for the most part, they achieved it. I think the moments where it maybe stopped for me is that line you said as an example, you're asking for it when you dress in tight trousers, or, whatever the quote was. Only because, at the time we're recording this, there's been recent events, going on here in the UK regarding women sadly being, assaulted or in some cases killed by men who don't know, well, not don't know, they do know, but, they cross the boundaries, they cross all the lines possible. And we've heard that being used as an excuse, so many times, people out on a night out, oh, but they're wearing that, so they're asking for it, which is I was about to swear then. Complete rubbish. You know what I mean? It's a rubbish excuse. Like we're all adults with brains. Like we can't just. It's a null and void defense. So to hear that, I think so recently with what's going on, I think for me it took me out of it just for a second.
Okay,
and that's not the show's fault because it was obviously made a long time ago.
See, I think personally, for me, because of that recent stuff that's been in, that we're now talking about more. Actually, I think that line particularly was one of the strongest because because we're talking about that now, that in this episode really does hold up that mirror and go, look, this is making Rimmer feel uncomfortable when it's done to him, so he shouldn't be doing it the other way around. And so that message being there, I think makes it more relevant to today than it necessarily maybe even was then. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with you in terms of it being relevant. I think what I meant was when I say it took me out a little minute was, like I said, they have to play a lot of it balancing the comedy with the seriousness of what they're saying. And I think for the most part, I could still get the seriousness of what they were saying while still being invested in the comedy. But I think it was that one line, just because of what's been happening, that I didn't sort of chuckle at that point or laugh in any way. I just sort of, mentally, I think I just sort of came away from Red Dwarf for a minute and just listened to what they said, which is fine. As you say, it's very important, and I think it's a fair reaction. And at that, I'd even argue I'm not chastising this episode for it. I think it's just because of what's been happening. I just had to sort of take myself out of this sci-fi world for a minute and be like, I just had a minute to reflect. I think I just needed a moment to gather everything. But yeah, I agree with you. I think this episode and its themes arguably are even more relevant now than maybe they were back in 1989.
Yeah, and even Lister doesn't get out of the firing line of this because obviously early on in the episode, as we saw, he was the sort of counterpoint to Rimmer's sort of sexism, and he was going, look, this is out of order, and he was telling him so. But then we see that Lister's also hypocritical about this in some aspects as well, not in the same ways as Rimmer, and possibly not as bad as Rimmer, but there's one point where Rimmer's asking him whether or not he's interested in, Lister's interested in getting with his own counterpart. And he's like, no, she's disgusting. Have you seen? She's tried to impress me with downing like 6 or 7 beers. It's disgusting. Yeah. But that's what he does. And Rimmer even points that out. And he's like, yeah, but... oh no, I see it because he belches the some song or other. And
Yankee Doodle, yeah.
Yankee Doodle, and Rimmer points out that he does that too.
Yeah, but when I do it, it's really stylish, man.
It's that double sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of double standards. That even Lister has, even though he's the guy that at the beginning we are kind of going, okay, we're on his side because obviously Rimmer's the sexist one, but also. Even people that are doing... I think it's quite a nice message, quite a good message, that even the people that are trying their best and you think there's going to be some kind of hypocritical aspect to them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that moment, like you say, with Lister sort of saying, oh, it's disgusting she does it. Oh, but when I do it, it's better. It's, it's so telling of what we've heard so many... men say, this, how awful, this girl's like hardly wearing anything, she's, I hate saying it, but the argument is, oh, she's asking for it, blah blah. It's like, okay, or sorry, better example is saying, oh, she's trying to, this girl's been really forward with me, she's trying to trap me up, she's trying to put her arms around me, whatever. And it's like, okay, so why is it okay when you do that to women? And he goes, oh well, when I do it, I'm trying to be friendly, or some other rubbish. It's null and void. As soon as you say it, as soon as someone shows that they're uncomfortable at the exact thing they do to other people, I'd argue they don't have like with Lister, there's no defense. It's like, how do you can try. It's like, oh well, when I do it. But I think as soon as you start that, as soon as you say, oh well, when I do it, it's like, no, now you're searching for an excuse that isn't there. So again, I think you're right. It's an important line and moment that is both funny in context of the show, because we know Rimmer's like that, and we know he'd do that, but also very important in that message of... It's just that classic thing of don't do to others what you wouldn't want done to you.
Yeah.
In a nutshell. I mean, there is more to it than that, but if you wanted to put it in, a succinct bracket, it is that, and just, it's that phrase. I've probably misquoted it, but you know the phrase I'm talking about, treat others how you'd want to be treated, or something like that.
Yeah, do unto others what you would
That's it,
have done unto yourself, or something like that.
Yeah. Just don't be an idiot. Just don't be stupid.
Yeah. So I was really impressed with the kind of the theming running through this. Dealt with some serious topics, but in a typical comedy Red Dwarf ways. So we got that, and then the sort of like the very light-hearted aspect to this parallel universe story is the cat.
Yeah.
Whose counterpart is not a female cat, like he had hoped, because when Cat first finds out about the Lister and Rimmer female counterparts, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna find me my female cat to go and have some good times with," and it's not a cat.
It's not. No, it's a dog from the deep south.
Oh yeah.
Boy, oh boy, where'd they go? I get so dang panicky when they go off and leave me on my own like this.
And I love that, for a scruffy character, they thought, what do we do? Oh yeah, Cat's American, deep south. The deep south is often the butt of many a joke, and in some cases I would argue that's deserved. But I just found it funny how because I did wonder, as soon as they, Miss Lister said, "Oh, it's not a cat," I did think it was a dog. That was my instant twinge. But then I thought, how will we see a dog, portrayed in this universe, considering how Cat is the way he is, smartly dressed, and all that. And I just think it was a perfect antithesis, scruffy, dirty, overgrown. It was
getting worried about where its friends are and its owners are. Like,
it was a perfect representation of. Yeah, it was a perfect representation of what a dog would be in this universe, I suppose. Yeah, and I know we've said before that we not complain, but we sort of said, oh, it'd be nice, if Cat had more to do in these stories. And he doesn't arguably have that much to do here, but I think this is the one case so far where I'm okay with that, because I think, like we said, the themes and messages of what's going on take precedent. And you're right, Cat is very light relief in this story, and it's the moments that he and the dog have are great, and they're, with where they are. I think if that had gone if there were any more, I don't know, I think maybe it would have taken away some of what we got and what we've discussed. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. And it is, he's kind of doing cat things, which this time are sort of juxtaposed with the dog things. But he actually does have his own plot line. That's which often he doesn't have. Often he's just popping into the other's plot line to do something cat-like and say a few, cheesy lines and then go off again. He often doesn't have his own plot line, whereas at least here he does have a plot line. He has this, confrontation with the dog, and there's something more for him to do, even though it is still based around the fact that he has cat characteristics and this person has dog characteristics.
Absolutely. And an odd bit was when they have like a little dance off, and for some reason they speed up Cat's dancing, which is a bit odd, considering at the very opening we saw him do this whole choreographed routine. And I know it's probably just for this, for the sake of comedy, but I don't know.
I must admit the dancing bit didn't work for me. I didn't find that funny, and the speeding up. The one, I suppose it makes him sound like he's got a cat screeching, but I don't get why they needed to speed it up necessarily.
Yeah, I didn't even think they needed the dance-off necessarily. I thought just having the two of them sort of arguing their differences, or, like they were doing when they first meet, I thought that would have been enough, just a short little, that short little light relief break from everything. But, the whole sped-up dance-off thing was, it was just a bit weird. It was just a bit odd.
And then when Holly and Hilly are meant to have been working on the Hollyhop Drive to get them back. And they have been, but it looks like they've been doing some other stuff as well. Because
Yeah.
Holly appears back on the screen next to Hilly, and he's got quite a few lip marks over his face.
No, it's a computer rash, remember?
Yeah, of course. It's a computer rash. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I like that Holly got a bit of a love plot, even if most of it was off screen.
Yeah, there's little things Hilly does as well, like when they first see him with the kiss and they mention it. It's very small, but her eyes sort of like slightly dart off center very quickly, almost like she's trying to avoid. You know how we do when we get confronted and you sort of look away briefly, like she sort of did that, and it just made me chuckle a little bit.
I'm intrigued because I'm not going to tell you why until future episodes. But this is one of the things about I don't want to spoil too much for you as you are watching them going forward. But what did you think of Hilly?
Of Hilly? Yeah, I liked her. I mean, as we said, she is a female version of Holly, right down to like the same accent, the deadpan delivery. I liked her, and I think seeing more of her with Holly would be quite cool. I think, yeah,
cool.
I like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Anybody else listening to this will be like going, you
hold
wait.
your tongues,
careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
But yes, no, I really like Hilly. She's I've forgotten the actress' name. What is it? Hold on, I had it up on the screen a second ago. Let me see if I can find it again. Because brilliant delivery, and has that same sort of slightly coming across as slightly doesn't know what they're doing, but also slightly does type attitude and delivery that Norman Lovett has as well. So that worked really well. Hattie Hayridge, that's it. Hattie Hayridge is the name. Who I think the person who I think I read somewhere that they'd just seen her doing stand-up or something, and the people that wrote the show and thought she was really good.
Well, she is really good, so yeah, I can vouch for that, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just to touch on some of the other performers in this, I had a little big smile on my face when we meet Ms. Rimmer and Lister, and Miss Lister is played by Angela Bruce, who,
of course,
for classic Who fans, is Brigadier Bambera in Battlefield, and it was one of those, like, I saw her, and I went, oh, I was like, I know that face. And all the way through, I just sort of kept. I was like, I think that's Angela Bruce. And then when the credits came off, I was like, it was Angela Bruce.
You know what? I did not make that connection until you just said it. But yes, absolutely,
yeah.
Of course.
And I think it partly helped because when she must have filmed this was like a year before Battlefield, or like months before. So obviously she looks fairly similar. So I think that helped. But no, she's great. I mean, a Scouse accent, because I don't think she's from Liverpool, at least not to my knowledge. So she put that on. It was a pretty good Scouse accent, matching Lister's like mannerisms and action. I think she did a cracking job, as did, and so bad name's gone, Mrs. Rimmer also did a brilliant job of, you're going to have to type for me, but, doing that sort of stiff upper lip, but, when Rimmer tries to flirt. Yeah, they were both brilliant.
It was basically Arlene Rimmer and Deb Lister. That's what their names were.
That was it, yeah.
I just looked it up. Yeah, they were so good. They epitomized the characteristics of the characters that we know from the last 12 episodes and mirrored it perfectly. It was such good casting and such good performances by the actors there as well.
So you're not aliens.
Hi.
Hi. How'd you do?
How do you do?
So you must be Lister.
And you are too.
Hope so.
You must be Rimmer. So am I.
Splendid.
Deb.
Dave.
Arnold.
Arlene.
Indeedy.
And I think, for both of them, it showed more so, excuse me, in the last scene with everyone in the parallel world than the morning after, shall we say?
Yes.
The whole pregnancy discussion. So, the two Listers wake up and they're in the same bed, hungover, and it's that thing of, oh, didn't we? And they come to the conclusion that they did, which is awkward in itself because you've essentially slept with a parallel version of yourself. And, then the idea of pregnancy is discussed, and we learn that in this universe, it's the males who give birth, not the women. And that naturally comes as a shock to our Lister. And again, it brings up this whole theme that they're not afraid to explore, of like, oh, you, like the whole you took advantage of me, and oh, it's the man's job to be, what was it like? It's the man's job to be like prepared or ready.
And to think of the precautions and stuff.
Think
which
of the
is
precautions.
Often, at least stereotypically is an attitude that has been, put over by men in our universe. Oh, I thought you would handle the
which again is rubbish, because it should be a two-way consenting thing, and you should both take equal precautions as each other. But again, like with the whole drinking thing and coming on to each other, it's that same thing, isn't it? They sort of say it's played for comedy, but they sort of get it in the dialogue what the discussion is about. And you've got Lister saying, "Oh, I've been taken advantage of," and blah blah blah. When in reality, he might be saying what the female Lister is saying if he might have got a woman pregnant as a defense.
Yeah.
So it is really that, like you said, sort of holding up the mirror and saying, just think about how you're saying this and why you might be saying it. So I thought that was a really interesting concept. And I mean, the whole thing of implied. So what? They've gone in a parallel universe. So now Lister has suddenly gained the equipment, as he puts it, just like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean that. It's a comedy show, so it doesn't massively matter. Yeah. But it doesn't really make much sense.
I did think that. I was like, stop thinking. I was like, it's comedy. Just accept that as soon as you go in this world, it is possible. Just accept it.
But then they go back to their world, so then it shouldn't be possible. Like he should, if he gains the equipment when he goes to that world, should he lose it? And then how are the babies still growing? There's a lot there that if you wanted to get sci-fi nerdy about
sci-fi comedy.
It's a sci-fi comedy. It doesn't matter. They hand wave it away with a line, and we should just do the same. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
If this was on something a bit more, I mean, even I was going to say hard sci-fi, but even something as not hard sci-fi as Doctor Who, I'd be a bit more like, okay, this doesn't make sense. But it is quite categorically a stupid comedy.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you've got a problem, you've just got to let it slide, man. Don't think about it too hard. Just go with it. And
however, if you do have any like crazy wild theories about how it's possible, I would love to hear those, because I would love to hear the absolutely bonkers theories about how this might be possible. Leave them in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube.
I can't wait to read how men grow ovaries when they cross into the parallel universe. I can't wait.
But of course, these children that he is pregnant with, as Rimmer points out, they have encountered some evidence that Lister might have children before, way back in the second episode, was it? Or the third?
Future Echoes.
Future Echoes, when they found a picture of Lister holding two children, and then they get the echo of him coming out and holding them after delivering them. Which seemingly is going to be these two children. I love that callback.
Yeah, and when it happened, I just sort of chuckled to myself, because you told me right from, when we started talking about callbacks, that this show loves to do that. Like, it'll take a seemingly random moment, not use it for ages, and then it'll just bring it back. And that's it, as you said, it was the second ever episode, and we never heard anything about it again until now. And now it's the cliffhanger. So now, now imagine that, watching that back in the day. You've waited nearly a year, I guess, to even have this mentioned again, and now you've got to wait another 6 months, a year before you find out what happens. Like, it's good. It's a good use of a callback, and a damn good cliffhanger as well.
And I like that Rimmer even quotes Lister from that second episode, because when Lister finds out that he's going to have these two kids, and they question, how are you going to get kids on a ship with no women? And he said in that episode, and Rimmer quotes him here, "It'll be a lot of fun to find out."
Yeah.
And he goes, and now Rimmer's going, and it was.
And it was. No, absolutely. I mean, I think, great cliffhanger. And obviously now we have the luxury, we could just jump straight into series 3. But I'm, again, imagining back then, what a great cliffhanger to get your audiences to come back for series 3 to find out how on earth does this pan out. Yeah, it's a great closure to a great episode. To be honest, I couldn't have asked for more.
So one thing we do every week on the show is sort of pick a favourite, funniest moment. Do you have one?
A close contender, and again, it was quite a small one. I think it's just because being an actor myself, I think it just tickled me. Was when they're in the parallel universe and they're talking about famous people who are now in this universe women. So, the first person on the moon is Nellie Armstrong. And then they say Will Shakespeare, or should I say Wilma Shakespeare. And it was just Miss Rimmer reading out the alternate titles that made me laugh.
Rachel the Third, Taming of the Shrimp.
But that line made me laugh a lot, like the alternate Shakespeares. But the one that has to clean, it's got to be the song at the start. Because I was laughing all the way through. I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm loving every second, and so are the cast. So yeah, it's got to be the song Tongue Tied that gets my funniest moment for me.
I am exactly the same. There are so many moments that in any other episode would have been my funniest moment in this episode, because it is a really good episode. But just that song at the beginning it's just so unexpected and out of nowhere, and I love a musical tune, and it was just so bizarre, and yeah, great.
And a top 20 UK single apparently later on, so which is wonderful.
We should launch a campaign if it's available on iTunes or anything. Let's launch a campaign to get it back in the charts.
What are you talking about, Phil? We're going to remake it ourselves.
Oh yeah, that's what we should have done for the top of this episode. We should have recorded our very own version of it.
Hey, maybe we'll wait a few years and release it as a single like they did. You never know. But no, yeah, absolutely the funniest moment in the ep for me.
Did you have a funniest character, or not funniest? Are you a favourite character in this episode?
I'm going to say the two alternate Rimmer and Listers. I debated picking one, but I think they're both they both did an equally brilliant job. As we said, I'm going to have to give it to the pair of them. Like, it would feel wrong giving it to one and not the other, because, like you said, they both exhibit those traits of the leads perfectly as opposites, and that both the actresses do a great job with their physicalities and their voices and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, for me, it's got to be those two. What about you?
We're clearly on very similar wavelengths for this episode. Although I did pick one. I picked one of them.
Okay.
There isn't much in it, but for me, the female Rimmer just edges it as my favorite character. Yeah. And
that's fair.
Yeah, just does such a good job of mirroring the mannerisms and everything, and the scene in the nightclub between the two of them when she's like very cringeworthily hitting on him, trying to use the same hypnotism method against him that he was describing to Lister at the beginning, and all that sort of stuff. It worked so well.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So we are fairly similar on our favourite character and favourite moment. Have we scored them the same as well? What would you? How many scutters would you score them out of 10 this episode?
I'm gonna go with a 9.5.
We've given it the same score.
We've done it. Oh no. Well, I mean, testament to how good this episode is. Clearly, I know I said last week the episode Queeg was. I think I said it was my favourite so far on my watch through. I think this one's pipped it. I didn't think it would happen so soon, but yeah, just really funny, strong all the way throughout. Like we said, the themes, they're serious, but also, with that sprinkle of comedy. They tread the line very well with it. The two alternate Rimmer listers are great. Hilly's great as well. The dog made me laugh. Everyone was on top form. It all just worked. Do you know what I mean? Everything just worked. The 0.5, I think, there was still those one or two gags like we mentioned that maybe they dragged on a little bit too long near the beginning. I think it was just those overblown bits of comedy. And I don't want to say it's not like deducting it because of it, but no, I was just going to refer back to my point about that moment where I sort of had to take myself out of it for a minute just because of what was said. But again, that I'm not going to attribute it to this score because that's not the show's fault. It's just because of what was said and with what's going on at the minute.
Yeah.
So no, I won't tie it to that. Mainly just those little bits of comedy that just didn't click. I'd say that was where it faltered for me.
That's fair. I'm very similar. It was such a good. Just there's so many funny moments in it. Some great characters, some brilliant acting, some great. Like I've mentioned it before, but I love a callback and brilliant callback at the end of the
and
episode.
you get callbacks, yeah.
And then it was just a really good exploration of the sort of double standards between the sexes as well. In a comedy show like this, you don't often get such a important topic explored really well, and this did it, and it was really good.
I couldn't agree more. Just very good. As I said, for me, surprisingly, my new favorite episode. Didn't think it'd happen so soon, but there you are. I mean, if the quality keeps going up, I'll be saying that every single week. And I must say, from what I've seen from Red Dwarf people, either online or whatever, people seem to hold Series 3 in pretty high regard, from what I've seen. I haven't seen any spoilers, but I think I saw someone do a ranking or like a tier list, and I think that person put Series... There was only 2. I think they put Series 3 and 6 in the top spot, I think. So I thought, okay. So I'm looking forward to what's to come. We didn't see Crichton again.
No, the whole of the series.
Where
is he?
I think you said that before, Crichton? But where is he? I thought maybe I was like, is he going to pop up in the finale? Because he's roaming around the dwarf somewhere.
Well, that's what the last episode would lead us to believe. He went off on Lister's bike, driving around the ship. I don't know if he left the ship. So, I don't know.
Maybe.
But
I mean, from pictures and stuff, for those who think, he doesn't know, I do know Crichton he will pop up again. I've seen the pictures, but I don't know when he pops up again. And I hope it's soon. I liked Crichton. Okay. But I liked Crichton this season.
I'm looking forward to, because you already know he gets recast, so I'm not spoiling
yes.
that. You know that. So I'm looking forward to seeing, as your introduction to the character has been so recently, the version that you saw, what you think of the new actor portraying
Absolutely.
him.
No, I'm looking forward to it. But I mean, it's got Series 2, Red. It's been a blast. I'd say, from memories just of all of them, I'd say I've enjoyed it more than the first. I think in many ways it kept pushing its concepts. I think it felt a bit more stable to do more experimental stuff. Like, we got the stuff early on, we had like the video game episode, like the VR thing, going into that virtual dream world.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, Series 1 took risks as well, but I feel maybe now that, that went down well, and they thought, okay, we've got something. Now we can really do
they've found their feet. They're getting more ambitious, and that will continue. They will continue to get more ambitious,
good.
Which is
good.
Which is certainly good.
It.
Look, join us next week. We're not taking a break.
Please.
You don't have to wait 6 months for us to come on the screen again. We're here every week. We're going to head straight on into Series 3 of Red Dwarf next week with Backwards, which I will say is one of the fan favourite episodes.
Okay.
I think it's Backwards. I have got that right, haven't I? I am sure it is.
I hope so.
I hope so. If I haven't, I'm sure the comments will tell me.
Yeah.
So that is straight into that next week, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
Yeah.
We will see you again then, hopefully. Do join us. You can check out this on my YouTube channel. You can listen to this every week. Occasionally, we do make it a premiere, and we join in the chat box, but not every episode.
We do.
We do it for special episodes here and there.
Special occasions.
Yeah, we probably do it for series finales and series openers and the occasional fan favourite episode. So we probably premiered this episode. I don't know. Well, it depends if we're busy on the day as well.
True.
But you can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, all your usual places as well. Where else on the internet can they find you, Adam?
For me, I'm on YouTube as well. Just type in Adam Martyn, Martyn with a Y. And I know probably regular listeners you don't have to keep saying it. Trust me, throughout my life, I do have to keep saying it. Because if I see Martyn with an I one more time. Just search Adam Martyn with a Y. I should pop up. I make videos about sort of like Philip in a way, like about pop culture, Doctor Who, and many other things I'm interested in. You can also follow me on Twitter at Adam Martyn Actor for my daily ramblings. And yeah, as Philip said, go and check out the pod on his channel. Go and check it out on all the streaming sites. We are everywhere. You can't escape. And yeah, hopefully we will see you in future episodes. Looking forward for Series 3. Bring it on. Bring it on.
Bring it on. We will see you then.
See you later.